Over the last week, I've had the chance to play what I would call a feast of a game. It's wonky controls, uncohesive story, and absolutely no hand-holding. Make this one of the harder games to digest, but holy shit, if you push through all that and you learn all the mechanics and you learn all the different things, this game has so much to offer, it is ridiculous. And with that, I welcome you to the world of Crimson Desert. Now, after watching all that juicy gameplay, you might have walked away with the question, what is Crimson Desert? Well, Crimson Desert is a fantasy open-world action-adventure game from Pearl Abyss. You play as Cliff, a warrior trying to survive a brutal conflict across the continent of Pywell, with big combat, exploration on par with games like Breath of the Wild and Red Dead Redemption 2, and a unique approach to RPG mechanics. This game has something special at every turn. And so right off the bat, let's rip off the band-aid and talk about the weakest part of this game, and that is the story. The story starts off as you, Cliff, the main character, walk into your camp and are ambushed by the Black Bears. Your boys, the Greymanes, were not ready for this attack, and so you guys literally get eviscerated, and I'm pretty sure that Cliff dies here.
Well, you had your chance.
Yeah, he's definitely dead. But as all great main characters go, Cliff does not meet his end here. He is rescued by magical powers that bring him back to life and have him appear in some mystical weird world. From here, you solve a couple of puzzles, learning how to jump and learning how to interact with your new abyssal powers. And then once that's done, you're drawn up to the surface again and then end up on the side of the river. And if you're confused right now on how this story is going, well, let me tell you, I was freaking hella confused when I was going through this too. And not only was I confused at this point, I was also thinking, what's next for the story? And oh boy, was I surprised when the next part of the game was essentially doing side quests to just help these magic people that end up telling you that you're the savior of the world and then leave you to your devices. I mean, this story just straight up is not good. I am not a big fan of the story. It's not the thing that made me fall in love with this game. No. That was the world. Not only is the world of Crimson Desert something extremely detailed and beautiful to look at, it is full of fun side activities, a living, breathing world with NPCs doing things that make sense for their characters, and great exploration that lets you find all sorts of stuff and solve all sorts of puzzles along the way. So let's get into the details of all these different things so that you can really see all the magic and love put into this game that is resonating with so many people across the world. Starting with the visuals, this game has some of the best visuals that I've ever seen in a game at this scale. And what I mean by this is you'll have 50 plus enemies on the screen with destruction of the environment, with particle effects everywhere, blood splashes, elemental effects, all stacking on top of each other to create this insanely cool looking spectacle of visuals. I mean, I know a lot of people will say, you know, visuals, they aren't the thing that push me over the edge. If a game's not fun, if it doesn't have interactive systems that I enjoy, then there's no point in me exploring something beautiful. And to that I say Crimson Desert has you covered. All around the world, you'll find something that surprises you. I mean, for instance, I was exploring in a town and I came across this guy that said, hey, let's do some grapple wrestling. I ended up playing this grappling minigame for about an hour because I didn't at first understand the rules. Once I understood the rules, I started to try and make as much money as I could off of these wrestling matches, and I ended up realizing that if I RKO someone from behind, then I can just do it over and over and over again. And honestly, this felt like cheating, but because I wasn't making like a ton of money winning these matches and it was taking a little bit of time, I wasn't utilizing my time in the best way possible to make the most money. No. I would make more money doing arm wrestling than I would do doing wrestling. And while you might look at that 80 cents that I just earned and think, oh, well, that is such a waste of time to do that. Honestly, these freaking arm wrestling matches can be done like within 30 seconds of each other. And so you're just building up like money and money and money. And while this might not be the most effective way to earn money in this game, it is definitely one of the more fun ways to do it. And not only does Crimson Desert have mini games for arm wrestling and for wrestling in general, they also have their version of poker where you wager 15 gold and you're able to kind of earn a bunch of gold through that. And they have their own rule system going throughout this game that you can learn for the poker. But I will say, when I see a giant screen like this where I just see a bunch of rules and things, it's hard for me to sit down and actually learn how to do it. But for those of you guys who are interested in this, it is something you can definitely do. And what I'm getting at talking about arm wrestling, wrestling, and the poker is the fact that there are so many different things that you can do in this game. And on top of these mini games that you find, you're going to be able to also search for treasure and search for armor pieces and weapons and all sorts of things. And I love this aspect of the game where you just stumble upon things. Like, I've stumbled upon like 5 different temples, and only at one of those temples was I able to solve it. And I had to honestly look up a little bit of the puzzle to figure out how to move these blocks, and all I needed to do was stab my sword into these blocks so I could move them back and forth. And as I mentioned at the very beginning of this video, this game does not handhold at all, which means these puzzles, you're off to your own devices or Google. And this is something that I think is a positive and a negative for the game, because they don't hold your hand. They don't just give you the answer. And so you're left either trying to figure it out on your own or going to Google and being part of the community of Crimson Desert to learn a little bit more about how this game might work. And while you're exploring and getting all this loot and weapons and gold and whatnot, you also come across these enemy bases. And inside these enemy bases, there are boss fights. And these boss fights are freaking sick. Like, they're sick enough to be main boss fights in like a main campaign. But the thing is this game has these bosses as optional, because if you don't explore, you're not going to run into these cool boss fights. And it's freaking crazy to me that that's the case. And one last thing about the world of Crimson Desert before we move on to the combat is the fact that Pearl Abyss took the time and the effort to add different like actions for NPCs as you go around the world. And what I mean by this is there's times where you'll see people farming, you'll see people playing games, you'll see people talking and looking off into the distance. In the Scholar Temple that I went to, I actually saw people studying books. I saw them talking to each other and conversing as if they were scholars. There was people looking through a telescope and doing all these things. And I know to some people that stuff doesn't matter, but I will say for me, it really helps me be immersed in a game where I feel like I'm in a living and breathing world where things are happening with me not being there. And it just creates a great immersive experience. And to add to the immersive experience, one thing that I came across that I thought was absolutely bonkers was I was in a snowy area and I turned on one of the fires that you can do in the middle of nowhere, and the snow started melting all around me. And this is when I knew that this game paid so much attention to detail that it was freaking ridiculous. And now we move on to the last thing that I want to talk about in this video, and that is the combat. Crimson Desert's combat is fast, flashy, and flexible, with weapon swapping, hard-hitting melee, grapples, elemental moves, and plenty of combo potential. And what that means is essentially in Crimson Desert, you're not locked down into a specific playstyle. You don't have to be the sword and shield guy. You don't have to be just the spear guy. You can swap between weapons at whim, because you can have 2 weapons equipped at a time, while also at the drop of a hat being able to throw out wrestling moves such as RKO and throwing people, and also parrying people and then shooting your bow and arrow. It is a fluid combat system that has so much potential for anyone who's willing to put in the effort to learn all of the different move combos and all of the different things, because this combat is as complicated and as fun as you make it. If you're enjoying this content and want to see more, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really does help the channel. And there's a lot of criticism around the combat, and I think where people are going wrong is, yeah, you can push the single attack button over and over and over again, and yeah, eventually you'll defeat the enemy that you're fighting, but the thing is you lose the magic that Crimson Desert is offering. It's offering you a complex, highly freaking explosive combat system that if you don't engage with it, I mean, you don't have to, but if you don't, you're not going to enjoy this game nearly as much as you would if you decided to take that time and learn about those things. And there is such a big payoff to someone who puts in the time and the effort to learn how the systems work in this game versus the people who maybe put in like 3 or 4 hours and said, nah, this game sucks. The story sucks. All the combat's super easy. All the things are just not good. I think that those people just didn't put enough time and effort into learning all that Crimson Desert has to offer. And so now we get into the part of the video where you decide whether or not this game is for you. And when it comes to my recommendation, I freaking love this game. With a world that's so detailed, systems that are so deep, and a chance for you to just make your own stories instead of going through the story that they might have set up for us, which isn't very good, but with a world like they have here in Crimson Desert, none of that matters because your stories, your experiences is what'll define this game for you. I hope I see you in Pywell, and I'll see you guys in the next one.